will be. Because, hey, I'm Preparation Plus is what I am. Mike Rose, everybody. Mike Rose. It's Preparation Plus sounds like that
I
doesn't
was going
sound
to
good at
say
all, actually.
that's
No.
that's our latest sponsor.
I'm really going to start us this time. Because
Okay,
that was a pretend start. Because you were still,
I'm adjusting my
hey,
adjustments.
what? This is a family show, Mike Rose. Nobody needs to hear that.
So sorry.
Mike Rose is with us, everybody. Mike Rose, here for an auspicious week. I don't know if
I
I'm
hope
using that word right or not. I hope
maybe.
I am. Yeah. Um, I usually have other podcasters on the show, and so I say, you know him from. Oh, well, you have a podcast. Go ahead and throw that out there. Let's just start with that right away.
Yes, I am technically a podcaster. So, friend of the Mac OS Ken, Kelly Guimont, and I have an occasional show we call the After Show, which is a reference to our former weekly show for TUAW, which was the TUAW Talkcast on TalkShoe. TalkShoe still existing. And we did that for 7 or 8 years. And then when that stopped, she and I decided that we wanted to continue podcasting together. So we have for a while now. We just, because we are bi-coastal, we don't often find the time to get our schedules aligned. So that's kind of a problem. But we do have a show. It is at aftershowpodcast.com. And we're on Twitter at _aftershow.
And of course, you were on Twitter as Mike T Rose.
Correct.
Is this your third or fourth time back on this show? I think it's your
I
third.
think it's my third. I think it is my third. Yeah.
All right. I'm not 100%. It could be third, could be fourth. What's interesting, though, is you've been here through different permutations of this show. Like when this show started, there wasn't even an open, I don't think. It was just sort of like it just came in the middle of a conversation. And now there's a bit at the beginning of every show. You were also here for the birth. I believe you were the first person to do the album side. And
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's going away at the end of this week. Not forever, but for a while. I'm not sure if there's clamor, if people yell and scream and say, well, I need my album side, then maybe it'll be back. Otherwise, I think it goes away a little bit. There is a new feature since the last time you were on, though.
Okay.
Basically, as I told Allison Sheridan last week, I'm looking to do as little prep as possible. And so if I get somebody else to do an album side, that's one day done. If I get somebody else to come up with topics, that's another day done. Suddenly, I only have to prepare for 3 days. And this sounds very good to me. And so we start off the week, and there's a real reason, too. If you're interested in something either that we wouldn't necessarily get to or that I didn't know about, I want you to have a chance to bring that to people. And so I've started a feature on Monday called It's News To, and then, whoever happens to be on. So like this week, it would be, if we were going to do it, I would say it's news to Mike. If I said, Mike's got a thing that he's been thinking about, this thing is news to Mike, what's the thing that's news to you?
The thing that's news to me is funny because it's something that I've known about and actually worked on decade ago,
Okay.
approximately 1 decade ago, which is the idea of corporate meetings or business meetings in virtual worlds. So there's an article in the New York Times this week. There was an NPR piece back in May-ish, I think, and it started with this NPR piece about a woman who was doing her editorial meetings in Red Dead Redemption 2. Which was, a way to get out of the Zoom or the Google Meet or the WebEx or the GoToMeeting trap and do something a little different. And she said at the time, there were some complications because there's, NPCs wandering around playing harmonicas that you can't shoot, and the wolves are howling. And in one case, I believe it was the same button that has you sit down at the campfire is also the button that would cause you to shoot the person sitting next to you. So that's a little bit of a problem.
Choke them, actually, I believe is what it said in the
Choke them.
article that you shared with me, which is great because how many times have we all thought about doing that in a meeting?
Yes, this is actually releasing the corporate id,
Right.
that we all wanted to get let out. So that there was that the New York Times article talked about a guy who was, I think, in the insurance business, and he invited a colleague or he invited a customer to meet in Grand Theft Auto, which, like, I don't know if it was insurance or finance, but either way, super funny. And so I'm fascinated by this because some years ago, in a previous role at a previous company, I was on a team or adjacent to a team that was trying to do this uh, for real, first in Second Life, and then in a custom multiplayer virtual environment where we would do virtual meetings and virtual corporate events in a shared space with avatars and people walking around and showing up and like walking up to booths or presentations, and super boring, very difficult at the time to get the technology really working the way we wanted it, and so it never really went anywhere. Second Life has done a lot of events and continues to do some stuff,
Yeah.
but it's really interesting now. It's sort of like the second coming of machinima, in that here are people using video game engines or the video game environment to make short films, to make animated dramas or comedies like the Rooster Teeth and the Red versus Blue that they did. And now you have the same stuff, the same technology, whether it's Minecraft or GTA or Unreal or whatever, any multiplayer environment, letting people interact for the work that they do. So I'm tickled that it's actually happening. Frustrated that we couldn't make it work, back in 2006 when we were trying to do this.
I don't guess there's any reason that Second Life couldn't still work, because it transcends platform, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's surprising to people to find out that it's actually still out there, because you're right, around 2005, 2006, everybody was writing articles about it and how Second Life was going to be the next big thing. And it turns out it's just a medium-sized thing, but I mean, it's still a medium-sized thing. Because of the work that I was doing with Roddenberry a couple of years ago, well, I mean, I worked with them until about half a year ago, but a couple of years ago, we started working with a company called Sansar, which is a VR platform run out of Linden Labs. So,
Yep.
I mean, they're basically just upstairs from Second Life. Honestly, it felt like they might have been hitting at the right time, except for the part where when everybody was really excited to get an Oculus Rift, you couldn't get them. And then by the time you could get them, I think some of the excitement had worn off a tiny bit. Plus, I mean, living in the Mac world, there's no use for it. I had to have I think I had an Asus or an Acer gaming machine that I know people who are like, oh, I can't believe you have that machine. What do you play? I'm like, nothing. I turn it off as soon as I can because the thing drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, Linden Labs, or Linden Lab, is the original publisher and the company that still runs and still maintains Second Life. So this is their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
What has sort of never really coalesced is the easy button, so the easy factor. And when you think about some of the challenges, obviously, if you're doing it in true VR, needing that hefty rig and a fair bit of time to dedicate and money to dedicate to it, versus something like Minecraft, or ideally, better yet, sort of web-based immersive games that would let you just sort of walk in.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about that is it's pretty easy. The barrier to entry is quite low, and so if you're able to do that effectively, why not? Now, it would be amazing if a Zoom or one of these big vendors was able to introduce this, the idea of environments and proximity and some of that other stuff. But it does require some facility with the UI. Requires the ability to navigate in 3D space from the keyboard and mouse, which not everybody's prepared to do. The generation of gamers coming up absolutely can do it, but we still have a secondary digital divide. There's a digital divide between people who grew up with technology and who didn't. Now there's a second digital divide between people that grew up gaming or grew up interacting with 3D worlds and those who did not.
It's kind of amazing, actually, because I read that the New York Times piece that you sent me. I was like, well, that would be cool because you're sitting there at your Xbox and you have your headset and you're fine. And then it's not until you just said navigating on the keyboard that I'm like, oh yeah, I'd be out. I'd be out in a heartbeat. 'Cause I've never played a game, not since Bilestowed, I think in like 1984. I used to play that on a friend's Apple IIe or Apple IIc or something. But I don't understand games that don't involve a D-pad.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're not going to, that we already know that this sort of world of gaming is deeply fragmented, despite everybody's, people's best efforts. But people are having meetings in Animal Crossing. That's fantastic. It's delightful. But who's going to tell the kid, hey, I need your Switch because I gotta have a meeting with corporate.
That's a fantastic idea, though. I have to ask really quickly, because you're more corporate than I am. I was going to say I've never worked for a corporation, but I have worked for one. Um, is there not a concern about security? Is there not a concern about privacy? I mean, is there not a worry that we're having business conversations in a platform that we're not controlling?
Yeah, I would say there is all of those things are true,
Oh,
which is
okay.
why. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I think if you look back, 10 years, 15 years when there was a big push to do it in Second Life, there were formal relationships between Second Life and those companies that were doing it. Today, companies may have issues with a particular platform provider or a particular technology, but at least they have somebody they can call. I don't know where, where you call when you have somebody in GTA 5, listening in on your conversation about your new product. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who the security person is for that conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
I would imagine too. I
so
mean, there must be levels of meeting that you would have. Like,
yeah,
not, we're not going to unveil the name of our top secret thing that we don't want anybody to know about in GTA.
no, we're probably not. I mean, I think what is very interesting now is that a lot of the conversations around what is and is not appropriate for what kind of platform and what kind of security controls or audits or visibility into the infrastructure you have for that platform, those conversations, those security and compliance and sort of figuring out what are we comfortable with, what aren't we comfortable with, are happening at hyperspeed. I think the biggest and most interesting one was sort of Zoom becoming becoming huge. I'm saying it like it's Xerox or Kleenex, but that's essentially what's happened. It's become the the verb noun cognate form of video meeting.
Yeah.
So so because Zoom became so huge so quickly and immediately incurred all this scrutiny around, oh, what's going on with, certificates being held in China, and what's going on with, you said you had end-to-end encryption but you really don't, and and to their credit, the the executive team and the security team and the developers really pivoting very fast. But I think a lot of CISOs and a lot of people whose job it is to worry about unacknowledged risk woke up in late March, early April, and said, "Wow, we really need to be thinking about this in a different way," because even before this happened, even before this pandemic, we already had so many of these critical conversations happening virtually, and not on plain old phone lines or not on anything we had a secured end-to-end platform solution for. Now everybody's doing it. So the target area is bigger, the target surface and the risk calculation becomes bigger. But it's always been a problem. The I think appropriate level of attention that's being paid to security on these platforms is good. But intrinsically there's nothing that is more or less secure about having a conversation with somebody in Red Dead Online. It's just that nobody has gone through and done the audit of Red Dead Online, and hilariously enough, a program that is designed to allow people to stealthily sneak up on you while you're sitting at the campfire. I just don't know what they'd be able to hear. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a problem. It's definitely something to think about.